Good morning and welcome to this Magnet Virtual Summit User Summit presentation by Jamie Tubbs. We're also joined by my colleague and friend Chris Vance in the background and myself, Craig Guyman. Chris and I will be answering questions during the presentation while Jamie is presenting today. He'll be presenting today on cloud forensics for law enforcement. This is a law enforcement limited presentation, and it is on a search warrant is great, but not always needed for cloud data. We're going to go into some detail on this, and if you have questions throughout, just let us know, and we're happy to help answer those questions through the chat window. And at the end, we'll also be setting aside some time to allow for some questions to be answered as well. With that, I'd like to welcome my friend and colleague, Jamie Tubbs.
Well, hello, everybody. There's about 600 people here currently, and I assume that that's going to increase as we go. I believe in Star Trek and specifically Spock when he says the needs of the one do not outweigh the needs of the many. You guys were here on time, and therefore let's get it rolling. Now, I did design this from a law enforcement perspective, but I'm not limiting this to law enforcement only. As you can see on the screen, this is not limited to law enforcement. But on my past as a federal law enforcement officer, it's hard for me not to take that type of view. I'm going to stop my video sharing because when I start getting into Axiom and going live, I think just me being on screen is a little distracting. So that way, when I say look here, you'll know I'm talking about looking at the screen and not looking at me presenting. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share at this point and go ahead and go with my presentation. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to start this out by talking about, as a whole, the credits. I want to give credits for credit due. I got some different information from different people to help me out with this slideshow, and one of those was Mitch Kaiser. He's with the St. Joseph County Cyber Crimes Unit. Some of you might know him, some of you might not. Mitch helped me out with some of the data sets and his expertise in the cloud arena. He's a practicing law enforcement officer currently. And also O.B. Carroll, who's with Computer Crime and Intellectual Property Section, CCIPS, with the Criminal Division, the United States Department of Justice. He provided me with some example search authorization. So I'll give you those, and there'll be a link for you to download the material. As an admin note, my presentation, I did everything in PowerPoint, although I plan on going live to show you everything live. But I did a PowerPoint for you so that you can later on go practice what I'm showing you in this presentation. I gave you a case file, some evidence sources, and a nice little kind of Q&A exercise for you at the end, and then I give you answers to the Q&A in case you wanted to sort of challenge yourself with the data that you learned during the presentation. It's always hard to say, am I doing this right, if you don't have the answer, so I went ahead and provided an answer sheet as well. All right, so I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but Google came up with a notice of reimbursement conversation out there that says that basically starting in January, they're requiring reimbursement for anything where law enforcement comes to them with the search authorization, whether it be a warrant or a preservation order or whatever. There's a cost now associated with that Google expects to be reimbursed for. So interestingly enough, that cost can vary dependent upon what you're looking for. And to show you what that looks for, what that cost is, for account information, and this is just account information only, if you serve a warrant to them saying, we want to know the person that owns this account, they will charge $45 for that reimbursement. And they even show that $45 is in accordance with 18 U.S.C. 2706, saying that they can charge for that if they want to.
Hey, Jamie.
We're getting some reports that they're not seeing your desktop quite yet.
Yeah, I think it's still paused.
How about that? Is that better?
There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. I did have it on pause. My apologies. So the slide I showed previously was just the notice of reimbursement that Google sent out to their user base. I apologize. After that, and I'm not sure if it began on January 13th. I actually captured this prior to January 13th, but this was their notification of reimbursement. So then this is their pricing structure that they came out with: $45 for just account information, records requests for logins. So if you wanted to show when they logged in, when they logged off, it would cost you $150. Communication requests. So if you want to get emails, any sort of communications for Google Hangouts or any of that sort of thing, it's $245 US dollars. And then if you needed simple assistance, administrative assistance with a preservation order, that was $60 US dollars. And then at the bottom, you can see that if you're trying to do a live intercept of information happening over that account, that would be a $60 thing. Now, not that they would do it for 60, the intercept assistance, so any assistance dealing with an intercept request would be 60 US dollars. So you can see this might get quite pricey depending upon what you're trying to do from a law enforcement perspective with this account. So not only does it get pricey, but this is just one search authorization for one account. If you have multiple accounts that you're looking at, that you're going to do an examination on, then this would apply to each one of those accounts, or could apply at Google's discretion for each one of these accounts that you're dealing with. So it could get quite pricey. And imagine some agencies that do, 100 requests a month. This could get very pricey over the standpoint of a year. Now, I gotta ask, do you think that this cost is fair? Do you believe that what they're charging is, or that it's fair to charge at all? And the reason why I ask that question is because you have to say, like, they're incurring a cost, so are they just passing that cost on? It is, by law. So if you do believe that it's fair, do you believe that the pricing is fair? And I'm not really asking, this is a rhetorical question, but I'm just trying to make you think about it, right? Is this more of an attempt for Google not to produce this data? In other words, if you don't pay, they won't produce? I don't believe that's what it is, but I just posed the question. Is this actually a cost incurred by Google, like in employee salaries who have to respond to the emails, package up the data, go retrieve it from the servers, produce it in a way that's ingestible by you and will stand up in court? Well, the good thing for us in this exercise, in this virtual summit, is that this is a virtual summit, not a philosophy class. So really, there's no debate on it. I just want you to think about it. Let's move on to the rest of the virtual summit. But please do think about it. It doesn't matter if you think it's fair or not. If you're going to submit a warrant, you may get slapped with a bill, and you have to be prepared for that on the other end. All right, so here's an example of a consensus search, and this is the one by O.V. Carroll, and this is by the DOJ. So basically, when you download the stuff, or if you download from the link at the end of this presentation, there'll be an email coming out. If you download this zip file, inside of the zip file will be a folder called consent, and inside of that will be this consent form. And there'll be a second one too that we'll take a look at. This is basically a go-by, kind of you fill in the blanks on cloud-based remote storage accounts like webmail, Gmail, Hotmail, social media like Facebook and Twitter, and online storage such as Dropbox and Amazon. And although this is just documenting it, I want to talk to you about a potential issue with two-factor authentication that we're going to cover when we get live into the presentation in a few minutes. But basically, it's just fill out the investigative agency, the case number, and then I, whoever's consenting, authorize, consent to the officers of whatever agency to conduct a complete search of my following cloud-based. Now, I'm going to put, let's say it was Google. I would put, Google in the account provider, username and logon, whatever that is. For me, it's jamie.tubbs, and then my password or phrase that gets me into my account. But really on here, there's no place for two-factor authentication because I'm not going to keep the phone, which means although I want to document it here, I still want the user, if I'm going to use consent, to sign into their account live right now in case there is two-factor authentication, or in case they're giving me consent, but it's really not an accurate password. Like I can't tell you how many times I type in my account password and it's not always it's not always correct, because how many of us have just one account somewhere? I have probably 30 accounts over the cloud somewhere. So the other thing is the verbiage in this consensus search has to be pretty well thought out. And when I say well thought out, what I mean by that is it says the following cloud-based remote storage accounts, which may include but aren't limited to webmail, social media, file storage, media storage, remote backups, and location services. So it's being a little broad because it's trying to throw a wide net and sort of cast it deep to make sure that we cover everything that we could possibly get back from cloud services. So the second half of this request looks like this right here. I have authority to access and use the above accounts and all information found within them, because what you don't want is somebody giving you consent to an account that they don't own. That would be a bad idea. And then the key part of any consent to search is the ability for somebody to revoke that consent. You can't have true consent to search unless there's an ability to revoke that consent, even after they leave. So in your consent to search, I might just point out here that you need to add a statement that says, I understand that I may contact whoever at wherever by whatever means, phone or email, and revoke my consent at any time, and then the signature goes in. You need to keep a copy of this, obviously, as the person receiving the consent, but also you need to provide this consent form that they signed back to the individual so they can say, I had the opportunity to consent. Now, this might just be a US-based law thing, I'm not sure, but this is the way that we do it in the US. I think federal, state, and local are all pretty much the same. And I would suggest if you're gonna do that same thing, it would, without a doubt, pass all of the requirements within the court system if you followed this guidelines. One of the things that I'll show you here is that, like I said before, when you get this document, this hyperlink will be active with an embedded Word document, and this is what it will then look like. So here's the entire form with an instructions on how to use it. And if you had questions of those guys, obviously we're not with the DOJ, so that link's probably not going to work for us because it's internal only. But if you wanted to ask questions, that sort of gets you down the road of how to ask the questions. Also, for the second consent to search, this was a little bit different. This is more of a civilian consent to search, because just because you're not with law enforcement and you're doing consent, I would still say you need to protect yourself. If you're working for, let's say, a law firm and there's a divorce case going on and one of them, you're being hired by one side or the other, and this is just an example, but you're being hired by one side or the other, you still need to protect yourself to show that you were getting into these accounts with permission. So there's a consent to search, again, a different one that kind of walks through mobile, computer, cloud, electronic data, stored when, printed signature of everybody, a witness, and then what are the account logins and passwords for each one of these. It's just an example. So, use them if you want them. I've included them in the material, again, that you'll be downloading. So, all right. So, in Axiom, how do we do a cloud collection, and what are the cloud collectors that we currently deal with? Well, I'm going to go live, but I'll leave this on the screen for a moment. We just added 2 additional ones to this list for cloud connectors, and that's Uber and Lyft. So you can grab their Uber here. You can see it right there. And then Lyft is another one. So we also just grabbed Azure, I believe. We'll see that live when we go in a few minutes, but Azure is another one. So we're constantly adding these different connectors as we continue to go on to make sure that we can give you as much cloud sources as possible. All right, let's go live. So let me just stop the presentation and head live. So if I wanted to, this is Axiom 4.01, which just came out. If I wanted to do a new case, I'm inside of Axiom process. I've already figured out and filled in the case details. If I just go to cloud, because we're talking about cloud collections, and I want to acquire evidence, these are my current choices. There's 2 different licensing models that we currently have. The licensing models currently deal with whether you're law enforcement or whether you're enterprise customer for corporate. And some of the licensing would have different functionality within cloud premium or cloud regular. But bottom line is we have quite a few. Let's take a quick look at what Microsoft. So we can do Apple backups, we can do Box, Dropbox, Facebook, Google. As you can see, any IMAP or POP email. Instagram, Lyft, Microsoft. I'm going to stop at Microsoft, even though we still have Slack, Twitter, Uber, and WhatsApp, because I want to show you what this actually looks like. So going live, I clicked on Microsoft, and it says sign into the Microsoft account. I'll have to choose my method to sign in. Like, do I want to sign in with a token, which maybe I didn't get consent. So we're talking about consent, but maybe I didn't get consent. Law enforcement, I have access, and I got the token from the phone. That's one of the ways. Username and password, which is the way that we would do it if we were going via consent, or external browser authentication. And this is interesting here because let's say they don't want to provide you the password, they don't want to provide you with the login, but they're willing to sign in and let you gain access, just not provide you with the password. Then you can do it via this method here, external browser authentication. We're going to use username and password. So it goes out through the Magnet API to the Microsoft API. And this isn't just, the beauty of this is it's not just Microsoft email, it's email, OneDrive. You'll see it once we sign in, all the functionality, even audit logs if you're an admin account. So I'm going to just use mine as an example. We're not going to actually collect it because it would take too much time. Sorry, if I talk while I'm typing, we'll end up with all kinds of stuff. So it actually signs in, it comes up and says, hey, look, what's your password? And then it asks me, I have two-factor authentication turned on, so it's going to ask me for that two-factor authentication, and I'll go snag it real quick. And as you can see now, I am into my account. It's basically just signing in and seeing what that API has access to, if I'm an admin account or if I'm not an admin account. As you can see, the Office 365 audit logs is grayed out. It's simple. I'm not an admin on this account for Magnet, so I don't have the ability to gain access to the audit logs. If I was an admin, that would be open. But what's really interesting about this is I can choose the email, the OneDrive, everything here I can choose to select, and then let's talk about what these options are from the top. At the top, you can see here, there's a date range field. In the date range field, what I have is an option to say, because I'm dealing with consent, somebody might tell you, I only want you to be able to gain access to the account during the time that the issue involved. Like, I don't want you to get stuff from a year ago because it has no pertinence on the investigation. I would agree with that. So we could do all dates after a certain date, all dates before a certain date, or a custom date range, which would basically be between said date and said date. So one of the things that we can do here if I was an admin in the email account, when I edit this, one of the things that I could do is I could choose amongst let's say I was an admin in Magnet's Microsoft account, I could choose from any one of the other Magnet accounts. And because there could be 300-400, I might just search for it here and it would go find it. Or if I wanted to collect all accounts, I could add all accounts. Now, if you're doing something where there are 300 email accounts and you're going to add all accounts, be prepared that download is going to take quite a long time for obvious reasons. That is going to be, my PST file alone is like 12 gigs. If we had all the online storage was 12 gigs for 300 accounts, realize that's going to take a while, but you get the idea. So if I go back just to be able to show you some of the other things, the OneDrive account, I can acquire the entire OneDrive account for this person, which happens to be 6 gigs, it's me, or I can be very pinpointed in this collection. I can edit this and choose what folders I specifically wanted to grab from this person's OneDrive account. So I could choose all the way down from everything to being very specific on one or two things. So I love the way that we've integrated this as well. I'll go ahead and kind of move along because I don't want to spend too much time on one of them because I have quite a few to go through. We're gonna, if you can collect from one, you can collect from any one of the other ones. So I'm going to show you some public scraping I'm going to show you some actually account information like we're doing now with Microsoft. And then we're going to move on to showing you what you can do with some of the data that you get back as a result to kind of show you how cool, not only how cool Axiom works, but also like what data can I get back from a standard consent search? Is it different than what I would get back from a warrant? So the SharePoint site, basically, if I had multiple SharePoint sites, I could edit this and just choose which SharePoints I wanted. If I don't edit these, basically it just takes everything. So I'm going to not take everything here. I'm just going to go back to the connectors. And one of the things I want to choose is the Instagram connector. So much like the other one, I have different here than Microsoft in that I can do some public activity, which is basically the public scrape. And I can do Instagram user account information. And the difference between the two is I'm going to choose the public activity first. You get public Instagram posts. That's what you get. If you go back, however, and you choose to go the Instagram user account information, once I've logged into it, give me a second to log into mine. I created one just for this class. Let me try that again. All right, so once you get that, you can see you get Instagram posts and direct messages. So what's the main difference? I'm going to get the Instagram posts whether I do the public scraping or not, but I'm not going to get direct messages back and forth from one user to another unless I get the login. So even if you don't have consent, you can still go out and use Cloud for Axiom to grab the public posts via Instagram. And the same thing with Twitter, I'll show you in a few minutes. So again, you can filter through dates on this, all dates after, all dates before, and a custom date. All right. So one of the things that I want to make sure we talk about too is Google, because it's a big one. In Google, I'll just go ahead and sign in with my account again, and I'll show you all the things that are here that are different from the rest. And if you haven't ever done this before, and you don't have a copy of Axiom, you can sign up for our 30-day free trial of Axiom. I'm not trying to sell you anything on this one. I want to show you how to do stuff. That's my goal. But if you've never collected your own Google information, I suggest that you do so, because it will be a very big eye-opener as to what Google collects on you. It's not about you. It's learning what Google collects, because that's what your person of interest that you're investigating or the person that you're defending, depending on which side you're on, might have in their account that you want to make sure that you know is there, because it might create an alibi, or it might create a damning evidence one way or the other. So let me check my two-factor authentication real quick. As you can see, I two-factor authenticate everything I can. So it creates a, hey, Magnet Forensics Axiom is going to be able to do the following things. Yes, I allow that. Hence the consent. And then it'll tell me once it finishes authenticating that what do you want to select. And you can see in my Gmail messages, I have 11.46 gigs. In my Google Drive, I have 12.38 gigs. And in my photos, I have about 26.58 megabytes. If I chose to collect all these, I can do this the same way. Google Drive, if I edit it, I can choose folder structure to collect or collect it all. Very granular abilities, so I'm not going to go too much into detail here. But showing you what comes back as a result of looking at this, to me, is going to be where you see a lot of the capabilities of the tool and what they're storing for you. All right, give me 1 second here to take a look. I'm going to go back. Take a look at Twitter, and then we'll move on to actually looking at the stuff that I've downloaded to show you the powers of what you can get back. So let's go to Twitter real quick. There's the Twitter public activity. So on Twitter public activity, public scraping, no password, no username, I'll get their tweets, I'll get their followers, and who they're following. One additional thing I'll pick up as a result of signing in as that person I just have to remember my logins. So not only do I get my Twitter posts and my Twitter users, which is following and followed, but I also, again, get the direct messages. So just like Instagram, the one thing I get from this is the direct messages back and forth between me and whoever else I am sending direct messages to. So a simple collection of that. And again, you always get the option to do the date filter. All right. So I think, let me just take a look at my notes. I'm ready to go. So let me close out of this. Let's take a look at this. And I want to bring you into the information that we're about to investigate is based upon a conversation that we've had with Ross Thomas. Ross Thomas, in this case, is our suspect. He lives in Northern Virginia. He actually lives in Loudoun County. He travels to work every day in Reston, Virginia. Ross lives with his wife and is seen as a family man to most at work and his neighborhood. Ross works for a lobbying firm. He has 2 phones that he uses. Clue number 1, he has 2 phones that he uses. The first phone he has is an iPhone. Fine, great. It's one he uses to talk to his wife every day. The second phone Ross has is the blue phone. Ross uses the phone to download torrents and images and videos. Ross uses his Wi-Fi at work to download different files. He's afraid that if he uses his Wi-Fi at home for heavy downloads, as he doesn't want to get caught downloading his child sexual assault or abuse material. So when we deal with this, today's exam is going to be about child sexual abuse material. Of course, we won't see any of that because alligators or sumo wrestlers, if you see an alligator or sumo wrestler, it is child sexual abuse material. And if you see anything dealing with a shark, it's adult pornographic material in my presentation. We like to use owls, dogs, some sort of animal. So here it is. Basically, for the purposes of this case, we are going to deal with that. Ross recently reconnected with an old friend by the name of David Mark. David and Ross met in Washington, D.C. at a party on K Street where lobbying firms hold parties. Ross connected with David on Kik on Sunday, March 10th. So our investigation is really dealing with March 10th and forward because we're trying to put sort of Ross and David at the same place at the same time so we can determine if there's other charges that we need to apply. Anyway, they continued discussing on Kik until they decided to move to Signal. Signal has a little bit more encryption functionality. So Ross used a PIN code to protect his application on his blue phone, PIN 1234. How do we know that? He's giving us consent. So we are utilizing the consent as well. Now, we're not going to use Kik. We're not going to use Signal. We're going to use just Twitter, Google, and, well, we'll show you in a few minutes. So David and Ross both agreed to start sharing their child sexual abuse material to trade a heavy amount in person on Tuesday, March 12th. Ross drove to Washington, D.C., and he's supposed to meet up with David on a street corner in Chinatown. While driving into the city, Ross took several pictures while driving to show David was getting closer to the city. So he's basically taking pictures saying, hey, look, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Hold out. I'm almost there. David and Ross met in Chinatown and proceeded to walk around to go to David's hotel room, where David was going to transfer about 1 terabyte of data to Ross's external drive that he bought in Fairfax City on March 11th. This becomes important because he bought a 1 terabyte drive at a Best Buy in Fairfax. So just remember that. We're going to come back to that later. This shows that he had intentions and planned on trading the data back and forth because he actually went and carried out a plan to buy the drive that's going to house the data. So Ross also stopped at a Starbucks in Chinatown and got an iced grande caramel macchiato. May or may not be important as we move on. So to wrap this up, Ross had to cut his meeting where he was exchanging the child sexual abuse material short because his wife was calling and asking, what are you doing? What are you doing? Ross left Washington, D.C., but left his 1 terabyte external drive with David so he could finish copying over the material. Ross returned to his office and called his wife from his desk so she wouldn't be suspicious of where he was and what he was doing. So on Wednesday, fast forward one day to March 13th, Ross arrived at work at approximately 9 o'clock and continued to download images of sumo wrestlers, which we know is bad, and alligators. Ross was contacted by phone at his desk and asked to meet his supervisor in the conference room. Ross sent a message on Signal to David telling him he was being pulled into the boss's office for a meeting and he was concerned, and he got no response from David whatsoever. So Ross entered the conference room. Two detectives asked Ross if they could speak with him, and the detectives requested consent to acquire the form. And I've already shown you the consent forms for the Google account. So they've asked to acquire the Google account, Twitter, and another one. So let's go live at this point and show you what we're dealing with. Once you acquire, do me a favor, Craig and Chris, keep me on time too, because I don't want to lose track of the time. But if you take a look at the case overview, you end up with, on the case dashboard screen, we've processed the Twitter public, the Twitter direct messages, so we've gotten the login information from him. We did the Google Cloud and Google Takeout, and as a result, we also got Facebook. So these Google, Twitter, and Facebook are what we downloaded, all public. For you on your take home, if you decide to download this data, the entire scenario is up here in the case summary, so you can sort of make sense of it later if you wanted to. It's also in the PowerPoint as well. Well, let's take a look at Artifact Explorer. So once I switch over to Artifact Explorer, one of the things that I want to do is I want to take a look at Google searches. So remember, we didn't get any of his devices. We haven't acquired his devices. We aren't looking at any of his devices. So we are only getting what Google stores about him online. And I'm going to create a date and time filter here to try to filter it down from all the things that he's ever searched for that are stored down to just a couple of days that is within our investigative realm that we're trying to figure out. So what I want to do is I just want to do one day, and I want to do it on the 13th, sort of bring down the number of searches. All right, sorry, I want an absolute date time, sorry about that. So all dates between, I want to choose 2019. And this happened obviously in 2019, March 13th. And I can just copy this instead of having to reinvent that wheel again a second time. And then the time range, I'll leave it for all dates and all times, on that day. So once the filter's taken place, some of the interesting things that I can see that he'll be talking about is like Scar Heavy. He's looking for some firearm searching during that day. It's starting at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then if I take a look down here, he's doing a searching for sumo wrestlers, which we all know from my brief is sumo wrestlers are bad. He starts searching for alligators, which are also bad. But if you keep going down here a little bit more, how to make money on the dark web? Can I disappear in a different country if I want to? How hard is it to hide in South America? If anybody has any ideas with those, please respond to Ross. He's curious. Sumo wrestlers again, and then here's where we start getting a little interesting for our investigation. Besides the alligators and the sumo wrestlers, what new phones are encrypted? What new phones are fully encrypted? What's jail like? How much time do you get in jail for horrible photos? I guess what I'm trying to show is not necessarily the fact that he's Googling this stuff. Yes, it is kind of damning, but the thing I'm trying to show more than anything else is Google stores this across a date time spectrum that you can retrieve as not only from a warrant, but from a consent. So would this be, during the interview, would this be something you'd want to talk about? Yeah, hello, I surely would. So let's take a look at something else too. Let's take a look at some parsed search queries. So even some of the searches, because he was signed into Google at the time he did them, he did some searching on YouTube, and even Google trapped some information on YouTube that he was searching about alligators and sumo wrestling. So again, not just things that are happening within Google is it being tracked. He was signed into Google when it happened, so therefore he ends up with this. And you might say, yeah, but how often do people sign into Google? Well, if you're using an Android phone and it's a Google-based phone, like a Pixel 3 or whatever, everything they're doing is being tracked. So you don't know what you don't know until you go look. And this is an example of let's go look. So let's take a look at something else here. And I'm going to clear my filters here. So clear filter. I want to take a look at, give me a second here. Media and audio. All right, I need to locate the source real quick because somehow my source has gotten disconnected. So let me just fix that problem really fast. You'll have to do this too when you download your cases and your evidence. The evidence will be in there as well. All you have to do is just locate source. In order to find out what it's looking for, you can see here clearly that it's looking for the takeout, Google Takeout. So I'll just go to Google Takeout, highlight the zip file, hit OK, and now I can see the zip file. So I'll turn up my sound quite a bit, and I hope it bleeds over into the microphone. If not, you'll have to trust me. You'll have to tell me whether or not this works or not. Let me turn up my volume real quick, and I'll hit play, and you can tell me what you think it is.
Okay, Google, take me to Fair City Best Buy.
Okay, so that was basically Ross Thomas. Could you hear it, Chris and Craig? Could you guys hear it?
Yeah, we could hear that.
Okay, awesome. So when on a Google phone, if you say, like you do with your Siri, if you have an iPhone, hey Siri or hey Google, one of the things that it will do with Google is it actually keeps that recording of you making that request. And as you can see here, it's saved as an MP3. Now remember, we didn't get the device. This was stored in the cloud for this person. So they made a request, okay, Google, take me to Fairfax City Best Buy, where remember, this was on the 11th, which he went to buy his 1 terabyte drive at Best Buy on this day. So now we have sort of verified the information that he bought it on that day. We could go to, assuming that this time frame 9/21 is correct, we could go look at the video surveillance at Best Buy in Fairfax and see that he was coming in the door and leaving with a 1 terabyte drive if we needed to. So that should be of interest to us that those are stored online as well. But it keeps them. How long it keeps them? Yeah, there's no retention policy saying they have to keep them for a certain length of time. So it's a hit or miss. Bottom line, if you don't look, then you don't know. So something else I'd also like to take a look at in regards to that recording specifically is that if I go to cloud and if I open up cloud activity and I look at that same time frame, let it realign here. I look at that same time frame and I look for, let me just filter for something real quick. I'm going to filter for a keyword, and the keyword I'm filtering for is said, S-A-I-D. In other words, something that he said. So this shows that activity happened at 12:21. Well, there's a 4-hour difference between GMT and local time, so it's obvious that one of these was stored in GMT and one is stored in local time because Eastern is at this time 4 hours off from GMT. So the other one happened at 9:21, this one happened at 12:21. It's actually the same time, just this one's being stored in local time. And if we looked at Google activity and we searched for in the action everything that is said, S-A-I-D, we would find all of the things that he said, transcribed into text in the description, but also you should find a MP3 unless that has been removed. What's great about this is the person of interest can't say, well, it wasn't me, I didn't look for those directions, when their voice is actually within the MP3. And what you can see here is the platform that they utilized this search in was within the Google app itself. So basically in the Google app, they said, okay, Google, take me to the Fair City Best Buy. All right. Something else, I'm going to clear filters here. Something else that I want to take a look at is device statuses. So one of the things in here under device status, let me just find it real quick. Recent devices. So under recent devices here, you can see the things that they were connecting with on their, what devices they were connecting with and when they last connected with those devices. Now the blue R1 was his phone, and the windows that you see here in Herndon was us actually getting the consent and doing the collection. So one of them will be you doing the collection. So this one was not us. It was him on a Windows device, and then a minute later, this was him at his desk, and then this is us a minute later in the conference room making the collection. But the idea is that I collected my daughter's phone because when I did this presentation to her for practice, she was very surprised at what it would do. She said, "Dad, can we collect my stuff?" And I said, "You don't want to collect your stuff." She goes, "No, I really do." I said, No, you really don't. Not if you want to do it, you can do it, but I'm not going to take a look at it. She's like, "Okay, I'd like to see it." So what was interesting in Google, she had 15 different devices, and it was everything from a computer she hasn't had for 3 years. It was a MacBook Pro, because now she uses an iMac. So there were things in here that had been there for quite some time, that you might have to go back and take a look for. So Google devices aren't just a quick thing. Matter of fact, on hers, there was a D50. It just said in device name D50, which was obviously a Nikon D50 camera. She never connected the camera directly to Google because it didn't have, it didn't have a Wi-Fi device. So what had happened was, to the best we can figure out, is that we had it connected at one point to the computer to pull the images off when she was collected on it, and it recognized the device and the device serial number. So I didn't have that trapped in this evidence file, but I thought it interesting to bring up because it gave the serial number for the Nikon. We checked the Nikon D50, we still have it, and it sure enough did have that serial number. So I don't know if it was pulling it from the pictures or if it pulled it from the device while it was connected, but either way, I thought it was a very interesting, that Google was trapping that data. So something else I'd like to talk about too is that, and this is where it starts getting pretty interesting, and I think for most of us, there's a lot of data we're not going to have a chance to cover in here, but this is one of the ones that I wanted to make sure that we did just based on time. We have about 17 or so minutes to continue, so if I got my timing right. So following on Google activity, so most people don't know that Google tracks pretty much everything that we do if we have Google installed on our mobile devices. So I've changed it to Google Activity, and then I'm going to change to column view, and in column view, I'm going to make it a world map view to see what part of these Google activities are currently being being trapped with geolocations. And as you can see, there's quite a few, some in the United Kingdom, some down here in off the coast of Africa, and then these are the ones again that I'm worried about here. Not worried about, but these ones I'm investigating was that Reston, Virginia to Washington sort of trip. So if we show this and I zoom in a little bit, he lived in Reston over here. This is Sterling, Herndon, Reston right here, and here's Washington. So if I zoom in a little bit, I'm going to move to a satellite view just because I like the way it looks better. Hope this comes across on your computers just fine. If not, please let me know and I'll switch it back, and I'm going to zoom in just to kind of walk you through some of this. You can see that these check-in points are happening along this route. It looks like following this road. And if I look at, I'm just going to zoom in on this one right here just to kind of give you an idea. There is one on this side of the road and one on this side of the road. Well, depending upon which country you're in, on the right side of the road in the US, we drive on the right side, and I mean the right side, not left or wrong. And then, if we're going this way, we'd be on the right side. If we're going this way, we'd be on the left side. So if I take a look at this one, this mark shows me being here at 1639. So at 1639 on the 12th, he's heading into DC, it looks like. If I look at the one on the opposite side of the road, it looks like he was in DC for a couple of hours because at 1808 or 6:08 p.m., he's heading back the other way. So yeah, these are very specific. Again, nothing that he did to create these. His phone is automatically tracking these things as he's moving, and Google is basically tracking him along the way. Now, what's interesting is, and I haven't done a warrant here to track his devices through cell data records and CDRs, but I'm able to do it through his check-in functionality. Now, I want to take a look at a couple over here within the city that have some for instance, this one that has 10. Like, wow, he has 10 different times he passed by there? No. If I look at this, this is a crosswalk with a stop, right? So this is a stoplight here. If you look at this 8, you'll see, and if I start at the beginning and work towards the end, out of these 8, he's here approximately a minute and a half at this stoplight, waiting for it to turn so he can continue to move. Well, from this stoplight, you'll see he turns left because his next dot is right here at 16:48:26. And you can kind of get an idea of how he's doing when you see that he pulled over here, and this happens to be where he got his coffee. Remember we said he got his Starbucks? So he pulled over here and actually kind of got in the turning lane, sat here at the stoplight for a while, went around the corner, stopped, got a coffee here. All that may not be important to you, but the idea is that it may be important to you, depending upon how it happened. So if we continue to follow this track, what you'll see is he goes up here, he then comes across to here, around the city, and then when he leaves the city, you can see these little flags here. If it doesn't have more than one, it doesn't make a blue dot with a number, but you can see that he leaves the city this way. Well, how do I know he's leaving? Because it's the time frame. At 17:58, he's leaving. That's when his wife called, remember? So at this point, 17:58:48. At the next point, 17:59:03. So 20 seconds or so, and then it keeps on going. Well, okay, we could just follow that track, and basically, as long as his phone's on and Google is placing him at these points, you can see he went across the bridge, turned right, got back onto the highway, back onto the highway that takes him back home towards Reston. But remember, he didn't go to Reston. He went to his work, not where he lives, and then called his wife from the desk. So although you might find this very interesting, even without cell data records, I'm able to find this thanks to Google history tracking me. One of the other things I might want to show you is a picture. I want to show you a picture that might be of interest to you. Let's turn off the world map view. I'm going to go back to column view. When I get to column view, one of the things I want to look for in the cloud is cloud images. So cloud photos 2.8. So cloud Google Photos. So in the cloud Google Photos, there's an image called 2019-0311 12/30/27. So if you could take a look at this, I'm going to zoom in on this image, but really quickly, it was published on 11 March 2019 at 16:33, right? 16:33. But you'll see that the photo date and time that it was taken, the photo date and time stamp was a couple of minutes before that, so 16:30. So okay, that's fine. Where was he? Like, there's no geolocation on this picture. If you take a look at the geotags, it comes up with latitude and longitude 0. So it's been stripped out of this picture. But that doesn't mean that we can't find where he was. Obviously, this is his car hood, his dash. Here's the hood of his car, and there's some street signs up here with the building. And if I click on this, if it was important to find out where he was at this date and time, maybe his alibi puts him somewhere else, or puts him not at the scene of the crime, and you want to validate his alibi, can I do that with his pictures and his phones? Well, okay, I have exit 46A and exit 46B on some road heading on to 123, or maybe even heading on to Leesburg Pike Highway 7. Now, I don't know this area. So what I've done is I've said, okay, where was he around that 12:30 time frame? So if I get out of this blown up picture, just remember exits 46A and 46B, because those are going to become important for us. All right, so what else happened around this 16:30:27? So if I go to my relative time filter, 16:30:27, I'm going to choose that relative time filter, and I'm going to say 1 minute before, 1 minute. I'll do 1 minute before and 1 minute after to kind of get where was he. Is there any of the geotagged locations where he was on that road or somewhere else within Google that might pin him where he is? Now I'm going to keep it in the current Explorer and say, okay, where is this? So it comes up with some photos, some other photos that were taken during that time, which may be of assistance, but there's also some location history there are 8 places on location history. Okay, well, let's go ahead and map those 8 places. I'm going to go to the web map, world map view. And if I take a look, where are those locations? And remember, the one I'm looking for is that 1630. So let's take a look here. What time is this? 1630. So what time is this one? 1630 as well. So it was 1630 30. So it would be right after this one, which says 1630-25. So let's just take a look at this. And if I zoom out a little bit, where is this? I don't get Google Street Map view on this inside of Axiom, so I'm gonna have to go out live to the internet. But if I take a look at this, I'm right by Dunloring. So basically I just went to, let me share that with you. I just went to the web and I chose, you know, this is Dunloring. I'm on Google Maps, obviously. I'm looking at it, and this is the same area as this. I'm gonna go up to this interchange right here and try to look at these points to see if I can find out exactly where that image was taken. So 46A and 46B being the key for me. If I zoom in on that interchange, looks like that's 46A right here. Have you see that? So let me just back up a little bit from that. I'm going to go to Street Map View. And I'm going to jump into the street right here. All right, so let me move forward one. Kind of do a different look. What do you guys think? Is that the same location, 46A, 46B? There's the Capital One building, and there's a building sort of over here. And then you'll see some construction signs there. Let me just take you back to that Google photo and show you that photo again. I guess what I'm trying to show you more than anything else is, can you, even though the image itself doesn't have geolocation in it, does that mean you can't find where that image was taken based upon his other location data? No, that's not, that you definitely can. There's the Capital One building in the back. Here's those 2 construction road signs, one here and one here. And there's the other building. You can only see the portion of it on the edge, but you'll see the 46A and 46B. So without a doubt, I can show this. And what I did was I put them into a view for you on my PowerPoint. I think it kind of tends to show you on the same page, so I'll show it to you here. Here was the image from Ross's account, and here's the street view. You tell me, am I looking at the same place? Yeah, he was sitting right there when he took that photo. So as long as you can put him behind the camera, which would be like, what else, you know, what else can I prove or disprove, then this might be of use to you to sort of think about things like that outside the box. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pop out of here and clear my filters. And I want to take a look at something new, and you might have already seen it if you've been to some of the other briefings for the Magnet Virtual Summit, but you may not have either. So I want to show you what this looks like, and we call it content-based image retrieval, or CBIR. And one of the things that we looked at these images, I'm going to go ahead and go to thumbnail view and show you one of the powers of Axiom that I absolutely love it. Under the tools menu at the top, there's one that says build picture comparison. So this utilizes Magnet AI, artificial intelligence, to sort of make similarities within pictures, or check similarities within pictures and retrieve those pictures from most likely to least likely. So as an example, I'm just going to pick this sumo wrestler, and it might be a little small, so let me just make it a medium here. I'm going to pick this sumo wrestlers because we said that sumo wrestlers were bad, right? So I'm going to pick the sumo wrestler, and I'm going to right click on it after I've already built this database, and then I'm going to say find similar pictures. I want to stop here for a moment and just show you some of the capabilities of this. So I can select the picture that's already in my image, but if I didn't have a picture in my image that I've found yet, but I have a picture live that I want to see if a similar picture is in the computer, if I'm looking for an exact match, I can use hashing. But if I'm not looking for an exact match, I could use import picture. I'll import the picture that I have and say find all other images that are like this image. All right, so let's see how that works. Find similar pictures. Select this picture. It'll go out and compare against the database. Now realize you already have to have built that database. If you haven't built that database, then it's not going to work. Now this is his online account. So I'm pulling out a bunch of sumo wrestlers from his online account in different forms. Now I don't know, is it picking up this picture because of the sumo guys? Is it picking up the pictures because of the hardwood floor or the crowd in the back? And the answer is yes, it's picking up from all of those reasons. And I'll show you in a minute how we know that. So it will go from the top most like to the least like down to 10,000. By the time you get to 10,000, unless there's a huge amount of photos, you're going to be on pictures that are not similar. In other words, here we have a similar photo, but then we get into this alligator, which he doesn't look like a sumo wrestler to me, but you get the idea. I mean, maybe this head here, if you look at the detail view, maybe that head looks like a sumo wrestler head. With the hair, I don't know why it picked this up, but you get the idea that it picked all the sumo wrestlers up and put them as the most likely up front. So if I was looking for those, what's really neat about this is if you're looking for a setting like a specific bedspread on a bed or a building or a vehicle, you could say, show me like pictures, and we show you pictures with sort of like vehicles. So don't weigh this out. This could be very impactful to your investigation. So I'll take you down the road with one more of these because I really thought this was interesting. I'm going to use a different image though. Instead of sumo wrestlers, I'm going to use one of the shark images. So let me go back to I'm going to use this one right here. So it's a shark jumping in the ocean, and there's an alligator in the ocean too. We said that sharks and alligators were bad, so I'll just choose this one and do the very same thing I was doing before. So I have to locate the source. Give me a second. It's obviously not on the same source. This source is hang on, so I got to cancel it. Facebook. Okay, so all right, so now I'm going to select this and choose the find similar pictures and select that picture. There's a reason why I'm showing you this, and you'll see it in a few seconds. So we have a shark, we have an alligator, and we have water. So it picked sharks, alligators. Here's a bunch of sharks in the water. There's a shark that looks nothing like that shark, but it still found it. There's just a section of water, an alligator, and this is the one that I thought was the most telling and interesting, is this picture right here. And you probably can't see what it is, but I want to show you. If I click on this picture and I zoom in, oh, is this in a different one? Hang on a second. I should have done this ahead of the class. I apologize. So this is in the, what is this one? This is in the Ross Thomas Google Cloud. So give me a second here. This is a shark in one of those bins at our local Walmart that happened to get picked up as a like image to the original shark jumping out of the water. Now, really, how could you sort of figure it out? And maybe I'm going to throw a joke out. Maybe this is shark sushi. I don't know. I don't know why it picked up this picture, but remember, it's moving from most likely to less likely to be less like, I should say, the image. So by the time I get down here, we don't have any more sharks or alligators or water as a result. But I think you can find that this would specifically show you down the road of like images and how you can utilize this in your investigations to make sure that you have what you need to be successful when moving through. Like there's thousands and thousands of photos you might get back from these consent searches. And this is a way to quickly spin through them if you're looking for a like image. All right. So what I've done now is that's pretty much it for me as far as this goes. I'd like to answer some questions and answers if I can. So please, do we have any questions and answers that I can do? I'll show you now.
Yeah, Jamie, we do have one question from the very beginning that I'm not sure it got addressed. Chris and I were furiously answering questions through the chat window. There's a question from David who says, please address Google return problems of Mac times, associated files, but mainly pictures. This is very important.
So talking about the Google Mac times, I'm probably going to have
return problems. Yeah, they're specific to Google return.
I'm probably going to have to go one-on-one, or one of us will have to go one-on-one with David. No reason I ask this because I need to understand the question better, because you could be referring to Google returns embedded metadata images, or when it was published versus when it was, because as we saw, excuse me, let me go back in here real quick. If I take a look at these images, this media, and let me get out of the actually, no, I'm not where I need to be. I'm column view instead of thumbnail view. If you go back here and you look at these images, one of the things that you'll see on these images, and I'm out of it now, give me a second, cloud.
It may help Jamie to, he elaborated on it a bit later in the chat. It says, please do. We are getting a mess of Google return data with Mac times all zeroed to the time of the activity where the Google technician performed the collection.
Yeah, see, this is one of those things where I would, so that on Google returns, you can ask for stuff and they can give you whatever they want, depending upon which technician gives it to you. Here's the reason why I love search authorizations. It doesn't mean you're not going to put in a warrant too, maybe later, but when you collect the stuff, you'll get 3 dates on it. When you collect the images, you'll get 3 dates. You'll get a published date, an updated date, and a photo timestamp. So this is when, like, let's just say the photo was taken, and let's say it was taken with a Samsung, J7 or whatever. When the picture was taken is this date. That's what the clock read on the device. This is when it was published up to Google. So it might have been a day later, and in this case, you can see it was hours later. Maybe they didn't have a signal when they took the image, and then they joined Wi-Fi at some point, or they came online, and then updated when the image was updated. So you sort of end up with 3 different times, of which Google on their returns, which this isn't a class on returns, but to your point, they can give you what they want. This is what you get from a search, which if you still have access, to the person who is of interest, I would say, hey, bring them in and ask them for consent. That isn't always the case, and I understand sometimes that's very hard to do. That's why you really have to do it early on and have them sign into it when you have it. So I can't answer your question specifically because Google returns is done by different technicians, and each one will do it a different way. So you can't expect, we can expect it, but Google's going to give you back different stuff depending upon which tech you get that's servicing your warrant.
Chris has also offered to help him one-on-one as well, so that may help him as well.
Yeah, no worries on that. I think we can answer the question, but the bottom line is Google's going to give it to you the way they're going to give it to you. I would say if you're having that problem routinely with Google, what I would say is in your warrant language, I would put in there that you are, specifically requesting the dates and times also associated with any images, movies, pictures, videos, on and on and on, just to make sure that you qualified that in your warrant. Although we shouldn't have to ask and get to that level, you obviously are having that problem, so I would ask.
Hey, Jamie?
Yes, sir.
So we've got a good question, and I've answered them, but I think it would be a good demonstration for you to show as well.
Yeah.
For any of the artifacts that the question basically was, is there a way to export the latitude and longitude data from the cache locations that we have been showing off? So could you show them how our new report export feature works, where you could generate any type of report that we standard do, but only include our latitude and longitude columns?
Yeah, so let's say I'm just going to select Google Cloud Activity because it's the one that has a lot of the GPS grids, right?
I think you mean the location history.
That's what I meant, sorry. So I'll choose location history. It's got the GPS data within it. I'll go to right click and choose a create report export. Like Chris said, this is a very new with 4.0 reporting engine. We've changed the entire way we do reporting. And so we could choose to do this via a CSV. XML depends on how you want it to go out. One of the things with CSV is you could choose the CSV report here, and you'll get items in the current view, which are the 1,340 items I have selected for my location history. It'll export that into a CSV, and it'll give me every column that I currently have showing here, including latitude and longitude. That's one of the ways to do it. Chris, do you have a better way of doing it that you were thinking besides that?
Nope, that was exactly it. What I was thinking there, Jamie.
Okay, you can take it straight to an Excel instead of CSV. It's your call. If you're trying to write some script for Python, you could take it into an XML script if you wanted to, and then you could just basically take it out to online KML file generators and just basically dump the contents of the CSV into a KML, and you could open it up in Google Earth. So that's definitely one of the ways to do it. But if you haven't played with this, it's not a class on it. I could spend probably an hour and a half on showing you how to do reporting within Axiom now. But I would say if you haven't looked at it lately, I would take another look at it because it's changed significantly in a good way. So, any other questions from Chris or Craig that you saw in the chat window that I can answer?
Yeah, Dima asks, please ask about data exfiltration with Google Drive shared folders the employees perform. I think that's something we could demonstrate on another meeting if we don't have time now, Jamie, unless you feel like you can do that now.
Well, I can talk it. I don't have it in this evidence image because he wasn't an administrator with sharing drives, and I didn't have access to his audit logs, right? But if you act like when you go to gather his things, his data, I didn't really pay attention to his shared information, and I'm not sure that Ross Thomas ever shared any anyway, so that's why I can't really talk to it on this evidence file. But one of the things, Chris, do you know if downloading Google data gives you the shared directories or not? I'm not sure if it does, or if that has to be through the warrant.
So in the case of the shared data, when we go to get the data, you can get some of the shared information, but in many of the APIs, I'm not specific with Google. I know with Dropbox, you'll get all the information about the file without the file itself. What I normally suggest is to get a full copy of the image. Now, just because it's not available via the standard API doesn't mean it's not available through other methods.
Yeah, I don't think Google gives you the sharing information for shared directories from a download link. I think that is something that you do require a warrant for. But like Chris said, I know for sure some of the other ones do. I'm just not sure about Google because I haven't. You saw how much was in mine, 25 or plus gigs worth of data. I haven't collected everything within my Google account. I've only collected certain things to just test with what my suppositions are, and then this evidence that we've sort of planted as a result of like classes and that kind of stuff that we're putting together. So anything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, Jamie, we have one other question from Donatos. He asks, is there a difference in what we get between acquiring hard disk from confiscated desktop, for example, in which there are sync files of cloud and of the cloud itself?
So yeah, when we get deleted files and the way things are stored on the drive are going to be different than the way things are stored in the cloud. For instance, depending upon which one of there are a bunch of different Google applications that can use the API to download and upload the Google information. But the source of record is obviously Google at that point, because no matter how it's being uploaded or downloaded to the Google servers, it's coming out of Google. So when you end up on your desktop for synced data, and I assume when you're asking that question, I'm going to make an assumption that you're talking about specifically the Google Drive, because that would be sort of one that would be synced locally versus being in the cloud. If I delete something from my Google Drive locally, getting that back would be standard forensics of recovering deleted data. However, Google would store that data in the cloud, which is why you might need to do a preservation order. Store that data in the cloud for a period, I think 30 or 60 days. I think it's 30, but it might be 60. And that could change tomorrow too, by the way. But you would request any deleted data as well, and they would be able to provide you on a warrant that extra data. So it could give you more data going directly to Google than it would be from getting a sync data from the drive itself. Does that make sense?
Hey, Jamie, and one other question that, if you don't mind, I'd like to take the ability to answer real quick, because I've been playing around with this.
Sure.
So the question came in, is there a way to get Magnet's web page saver collections processed into Axiom? And the good news there is that with the new web page saver program that was just released last week, if you generate your data, and I'm not sure if Jamie has that tool open at any point, but when you I'm sorry, Jamie?
No, I do not, sorry.
Okay. When you generate your report out from Web Page Saver, there is a checkbox for SQLite. If you select that, instead of just giving you the PNG or PDF, it'll give you a database with that information embedded in it. When it generates the SQLite database, it will also generate a custom artifact to process that specific database in Axiom. So if you have the Web Page Saver and you've used that to capture good information on the web, which I highly recommend, it's been phenomenal in the playing that I did with it last week, you can simply add that database that it generates as computer, Windows, load evidence, files and folders, select the database, and use the custom artifact, the .xml file that we present with you for that, and you can bring all that data straight into Axiom along with everything else that you've processed.
And if you have the old version of the Web Page Saver, you might want to grab the new one. It was just put out and updated within the last like 20 days. I think at the beginning of the month, I would jump on getting that new one. And just go to our website, go to free tools, and you'll see it in there. WPS Web Page Saver. Grab it. All right. Anything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, well, we'll end, I think, unless there's other questions, on a kind of a lighter note. Who is the primary contributor for this? This comes from Ed Williams, who's following along on the MVS 2020 hunt.ctfd.io.
I would say the answer to the question that you're looking for, which is a great question, would be in my slide number 1. Give me one moment, and I will make sure that you see that and you can spell it correctly. Give me a second to get back to the top. This is what you're looking for right here. Oops, sorry. That's the name you're looking for. So there is a game going on for the Magnet Virtual Summit, which is every one of the presenters has to provide a question and answer. And if you attend each one of the Magnet Virtual Summits, you have a chance to win something. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but my question was, who is my primary contributor? My primary contributor was Mitch Kaiser. So the answer to that question, if you're tracking it on my slideshow, is Mitch Kaiser. So good question, because I had 2 contributors. So thank you, Chris, or Craig, for putting it out there, because he probably appreciates that because he wants to win. So all right.
No problem.
Is that it then?
I think so, unless Chris has any others that I didn't cover here.
Nope, that looks like it from my end.
Okay, for me, folks, I appreciate you coming and spending the time with me today. About 800 people or so showed up. This is my name, Jamie Tubbs, and my email address at Magnet Forensics, if you have any questions, is jamie.tubbs@magnetforensics.com. Feel free to email away, and I'm pretty good at answering emails. So thank you very much for coming. And with Magnet Virtual Summit, we appreciate that you guys chose to spend your time with us. So thanks again. Have a good day.